Hi guys, today we're going to do the ribs. Let's start off with a bit of information first.
Okay, there are 12 pairs of ribs. Of these 12 pairs, 1 to 7 are true ribs. And what I mean by true ribs is their costal cartilages articulate directly with the sternum. Okay, 8 to 10 are false ribs. And by false I mean their costal cartilages articulate with the margin of the costal cartilage above. Okay, 11 to 12, these are floating ribs. And by floating, I mean that their costal cartilages end in the posterior abdominal wall. One, 2, 11, and 12, these pairs of ribs are atypical. And 1, 10, 11, and 12 only have one costocorporeal joint. With their equivalent vertebrae. Okay, that's a bit of information for you. Let's go and draw some pictures so we can start looking at the anatomy of these ribs. We'll start off with a typical rib. So this would be rib 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. So, typical rib. Actually, first off, what makes a typical rib a typical rib? Well, they're flattened in an anterior inferior plane. So they're flattened sort of this way. The shaft is convex externally and grooved internally. And you'll see what I mean when I draw a picture of a typical rib. Finally, the shaft is curved anteriorly and bent posteriorly at an angle. Okay, so let's get drawing. I'm going to draw this rib posterior view, so you can have a look at the groove that's on the inside of it. It's just easier to get all of the features in if you draw it this way. So remember, we're looking from the posterior. Okay. Just sort of a diagram more than a artistic rendering. Okay, so here's our rib. This is the posterior surface, this is the internal anterior surface. Here is what is known as the head of the rib. We have a demifacet and another demifacet. The attachment sites for the costocorporeal joints with the vertebra. This one is for the vertebra above the rib, and this one is for the corresponding vertebra. Moving a little bit along, just about here, we have the neck, and then we have another bony projection called a tubercle, and we've got an articulating part and that articulates with the transverse process of the vertebra, and a non-articulating part. Moving further down, we have the angle of the rib. This is where it bends. And then moving anteriorly on the anterior internal surface, we have the costal groove. And this is for the neurovascular bundle. And that consists of a vein, an artery, and a nerve, or van. That is the order in which it sits, from superior to inferior. So remember, that's going from superior to inferior, VAN, no worries. Finally, we have this section here, and this is the site of attachment of the costal cartilages. We'll move on to ribs 1 and 2, which are atypical, meaning they have a different morphology. Okay, let's start off with rib 1 and its special features. This rib is flattened in the superior inferior plane. So whereas a typical rib is flattened this way, rib 1 is flattened this way. It has a groove for the subclavian vein anteriorly on the shaft. Then it has the attachment for a muscle called scalenus anterior. And then it has a groove for the subclavian artery. Then after this groove for the subclavian artery, there's another attachment site, and this is for scalenus medius. Let's have a look. I'm going to draw this where the posterior will be up here and the anterior will be up here, because of the way that this rib is flattened. It's easier to view it this way. Okay, so remember this is posterior here, so vertebrae are attaching here, and this is anterior. Okay, this one only has a single facet. Moving down, we have the tubercle. And then keep moving down. Here is that attachment site for scalenus medius. Then we have a groove. This is for the subclavian artery. Then we have an elevation. This is for the attachment of scalenus anterior. And then we have another groove for the subclavian vein. So they are all the features of rib 1. Let's now move on to another atypical rib, rib 2. Okay, special features of rib 2. Again, it's flattened in the superior inferior plane. This rib has a tuberosity. And this tuberosity is for a muscle called serratus anterior. Posterior to this tuberosity is an attachment site for another muscle, and this is for the muscle called scalenus posterior. Okay, let's draw this rib now. Rib 2 is larger than rib 1, even though it's flattened in that superior inferior plane. You'll definitely be able to tell the difference between rib 1, rib 2, and a typical rib. Okay, again, posterior is here, anterior is here. We've got another single demifacet for that costocorporeal joint. We have a single tubercle. Then here, this is the attachment site for scalenus posterior, and then we have a big tuberosity, and this is for serratus anterior. Okay, finish with the ribs now. Just to finish up, we'll do the intercostal muscles. Okay, so let's start off with the external intercostals. Over here we'll have posterior, and over here we'll have anterior. And these have a waistcoat pocket orientation. So fibers go from posterior to anterior. Like that. And these muscles help with inspiration, drawing breath into the lungs. The internal intercostals have a hip pocket orientation. So the fibers go in the opposite direction. The fibers are going from anterior to posterior. And these help with expiration. Finally, we have the innermost intercostal muscles. And these also have a hip pocket orientation. So the fibers are going from anterior to posterior, which means that these also help with expiration. Okay, so a summary: you have your external waistcoat pocket, posterior to anterior. Then you have your internal hip pocket, anterior to posterior. Then you have your innermost, and they are hip pocket, anterior to posterior. Inspiration, expiration, expiration. These muscles join adjacent ribs, so you'll find them between the ribs. Like that, and then you got something like that. And then this is outside of the neurovascular bundle, and then you go in another layer and you'll find just your hip pocket innermost. And that just about wraps it up for the ribs. I hope you enjoyed it. Please come back again and learn more about the human body. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.